Today, Nicole brings an awesome topic about the power of our words. And at the end of this podcast, we're going to talk about a phrase that you probably hear often and you probably have said a number of times. Immediately, it will put people on defense, and you want to eliminate this from your vocabulary.
All right, this topic came from a conversation I had this week with a client, and I just kept thinking about it afterwards. I thought about it for myself. And the topic is, do I set myself up with failure with my words? So what I mean by that is when I'm speaking to my kids, or for other people, it may be if they are managing people or with their coworkers, we set expectations, but then we use different words. So I want to throw a couple examples your way of what I was thinking about. One of the things, we do it with our kids by coming to them and saying, well, this one, hey, do you mind doing the dishes? And then if they come back and say, yeah, I am watching a show on Netflix. And then we're like, I just asked you to do the dishes. Which what we really asked was, do you mind doing the dishes? So of course we're disappointed by their answer, but we set ourselves up for that. Or at work, if you state something to someone of how you want something done, but you leave it as your suggestion to them of what you think the way it would run the best, but you don't state that that's how you want it done. So then when they make the choice to do it a different way, we're disappointed or we're angry when we stated it as a suggestion instead of actually telling how we want it done. I think we do this all of the time. And I think when we get super specific with our language, it's a game changer in our lives. Now, I'll tell you one way. I'm going to stretch this out before I turn it over to you and see how you feel about this topic. Is one way for me that was a game changer when I changed my language is I was not saying no to things. It was more of, let's say somebody at school asked me to help out with a certain project. I would come back to them and say, I'd prefer not to, but if you really need someone, let me know. When I wanted to say no, I knew that I didn't have time for it, but I didn't actually say no. I think we do these things all the time when we're not being conscious about the decisions that we're making with our words and being clear with other people. And then we're just frustrated all the time. We get ourselves overwhelmed, or we are disappointed in how people respond to us. So do you have this going on in your world? I mean, have you seen this with people as far as, or do you have any other examples of ways that we set ourselves up for failure with our words?
Yeah, so I think you might remember, I've read a lot of books about this over the past couple of years. And one I've even mentioned on this podcast is Fierce Conversations. Another one I read was Successful Women Speak Differently. And that's a powerful book. It's not a very well-known, popular book, I don't think. I don't hear it discussed in many circles, but
I've never heard that title before.
Fantastic book. A Bible study called Your Best Yes addressed that exact thing. And it's let your yes be yes, your no be no. Because when you communicate with somebody, you're portraying an idea, a feeling, a thought over to them. And if you're vague with that, then it's going to set them up for confusion and uncertainty and bring in other emotions. But when you're clear with it, then it eliminates that. So words have been a powerful thing in my life the past couple of years. So I absolutely love this topic. I think when we change our words, or I know that when we change our words, when we change our phrasing, then it builds relationships. It provides comfort and security because people know where you stand and what it is you want. It eliminates passive aggressive behavior, which I cannot stand. I cannot stand when somebody's passive aggressive to me. I can't stand that. And if I ever like have a hint of that within myself responding a certain way, I'm like, oh, okay, I have to change this. No, because that to me is one of the weakest ways to communicate. But you're right. Like, we need to ask non-leading questions when we're not trying to lead an answer. So if we want our children to do the dishes, we can say, would you please do the dishes? And if they said no, well, that's a whole nother topic to address. But yeah, asking them, do you want to clean your room today? Nope, they're not going to say that. Or if you ask your husband, or if I were to ask Ken, do you want to go to see this musical with me, when it opens back up? He's going to say no. And then my feelings are going to get hurt.
Right.
But what I've learned to say is, I'm going to go see this theater. I would like to go see this theater show. Would you like to come with me, or would you like for me to ask a friend? And then he can choose. It's on him. Like, he can come with me, or he can say, nah, I'd rather pass. And I can invite somebody else to go with me.
And asking that question and being truthful inside of yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Like, if he says, I really don't want to go ahead and ask a friend, that then you're not going to go away feeling rejected, because you truly did give him two options.
Yes.
And he picked not the option to go with you. So, and being okay with that.
Right.
I started thinking actually how often we do this with our spouses with just vague answers.
Mm-hmm.
Are you mad? No. How are you feeling? Okay. Like those okays, those no's,
right,
those whatevers. I mean, what are those? I mean, those quick words that we use instead of really stating what's on our mind.
Mm-hmm.
And so it is damaging, because when I was talking to my client about it, the battle we were having is, and that's why this book, you and I are going to have to talk about this book more. What was the book about successful women?
Mm-hmm.
Because often women are battling that in leadership positions. They're battling not looking like a witch with their words, but being forward with their words. And you can do both.
You're being direct and clear.
Mm-hmm.
It's all about clarity. And when you see it that way, it takes out any aggressive tone that could come along with it. One thing that we say, I think females say this way too often, and the minute you do, it lowers your, what's the word? Respect might be a little bit too much, but your credibility, I'm sorry.
Mm-hmm.
Why do we apologize? I'm going to send that proposal out. Gosh, I'm sorry. It's probably going to be tomorrow before I can get it out. No, you just say, I will send the proposal to you. I'll have it out tomorrow. It's a totally different experience to the user, to the person, to the client, than, oh, I'm sorry. Well, now you owe me. It's weakness. But if you're just direct, I'll send it tomorrow.
You know what I love about what you just did, and it goes into this way that we use our language, is if you're watching on YouTube, you can go back and watch you.
Mm-hmm.
But if you're just a listener, I'm going to explain it to you, is when you said, I'm going to get that proposal to you, you hunched your shoulders and said you were sorry that you would, it'll be tomorrow.
Yes.
And so you hunched your shoulders. When you told me, I will be getting that proposal to you, you will be getting it tomorrow, you kept your shoulders up straight.
Body language is key in communication. In fact, some people estimate that 70 or 80% of all communication is through our body language, maybe even more. And when you carry yourself a certain way, then your communication follows that, you bring a presence to the meeting or to the conversation that can actually attract people to you. And they want to hear what you have to say. And so it can also, though, turn people off. if you're an arm cross person, you're super closed off, and you're not going to be very engaged in a conversation. And if you're somebody who doesn't look people in the eye, if you don't look people in the face when you talk with them, you're talking to somebody and then you're over here, you're looking out, so, you're just looking around and not paying attention or looking at what they have on instead of looking at their face. That's very distracting. And it sends this message that they are not paying attention to what I'm saying. So body language, yes, it's huge. And so when you start to notice your shoulders slumping, like sit up straight, stand up straight, and release whatever is going on in your mind, whatever stories you're creating in your mind. They're going to be mad at me because they probably wanted that proposal today. Now, if you had promised you would have that proposal today and you're not going to get it until tomorrow, absolutely. I sincerely apologize. I had intended on having that to you today, but I will definitely have it to you tomorrow is a whole different apology than, I'm sorry, I'll get it to you tomorrow. Like, own it, but just stop apologizing for nothing whenever you don't have to.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up too, because I think that's why we set ourselves up with our language for failures, because we also have created a story in our mind of being able, the need to coddle a situation, for example. But what it really comes down to is I don't want to guess what somebody's thinking. Like, I don't want to guess what you're thinking. You don't want to guess what I'm thinking. My husband certainly doesn't want to spend his life guessing what I'm thinking. Yes. And it really sets our kids up better if we start saying what we mean and meaning what we say. And it doesn't mean being mean about it.
Right.
But being direct really lets them know. I mean, it'll put them on a better foot forward when they start dealing with having an employer and having their own family and their own spouses. If we play this word game that somebody has to guess what you're saying, it stinks. I prefer not even to have those conversations, but I think that we chronically do it unless we start catching ourselves and really thinking about, did I mean that, or what do I mean?
Right.
I've gotten so much better, and we could go way back. I love that you brought up the sorry thing, because we did a podcast, Sorry Not Sorry, a long time ago.
Yes.
And I have caught myself writing emails or text messages so many times since then that I have just apologized naturally. And I went back and deleted. I'm like, what am I apologizing for? So I've been able to catch that myself. So I'm so glad that that's a topic that we've covered. But also because of it, over these last 4 or 5 years, I've become much more intentional with my words. Because again, I don't want people to feel like they have to guess what I'm thinking. So being able to just talk about it. And I feel most of the time that I can love on people well with my words, but not be indirect about it. I can be direct. So, but I do think that this is something that we do as a population, we do all the time.
Yeah, and sometimes we just don't have the vocabulary in the moment to describe how we're feeling. So the example you gave of asking your spouse, how are you doing? Fine. Well, or how are you doing? I don't know, I'm just sad. Well, sometimes we don't have the words to describe our feelings, and oftentimes our kids don't. So I love this wheel. Have you ever done the feelings wheel? You can look it up online. I think it's called an emotion wheel, but it'll break down different layers. So it starts off with 6, like happy, sad, scared, tired. Like, it'll break down 6 common feelings, and then it'll take it to another layer. Okay, so you're sad. Are you feeling lonely? Are you feeling scared? Are you feeling despair? Are you feeling loss? Are you feeling insignificant? And then it'll break it down even further to get it more granular. So you can start to pinpoint exactly how you're feeling. So maybe you say, I'm feeling sad. And then the child will say, well, actually, yeah, lonely. And then you break it down. Okay, are you feeling like there's nobody around you, or are you feeling rejected? I'm feeling rejected. What happened? Today at lunch, da 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 da. And
I love that.
it's really cool because once you can put vocabulary around what the emotions are that you're experiencing, then you can address it better. You can have a better conversation about it and get to the heart of what's bothering you, instead of just saying, I'm okay. We hear that a lot. Fine. How was your day today? Fine. What did you learn in school? Nothing. Okay, if you start to ask more specific questions to your children, your conversations after school are going to be so much better. Little kids, you can ask them a question like, what did your teacher talk about today? Who did you sit with at lunch? What did you do at recess? Those types of questions to get them more specific.
My husband would crack up if I brought out the feelings wheel. But.
Well, I've never brought it out with Ken, but I have used it with kids before, and teenagers even. I've used it with myself, and I'm trying to think. I think I've even used it with some adult clients that were a little closed off and shut off from their emotions, to allow them to start to process the vocabulary around what they're really feeling.
And the interesting thing about not having words, and I'm going to speak from an adult to adults now, because as far as kiddos, sometimes they have not just developed that area to be able to understand their feelings. And as adults, we don't understand our feelings sometimes also, but we do. It's really digging deep, and it's like we know how we're feeling most of the time. Or we know we could start like layering that off pretty easily. We just choose not to. We stay with fine when it's really disappointed, scared. It gets down. We stay at these words at the top layer when we really do know. And that's why that feelings wheel is so good, because once you start seeing it, everything is pinpointed.
Right.
But often we even believe we're just at that top layer. Just that it's just the way it is. Like I'm just going to stay here in this yucky place. I don't even know why I'm here. And they don't start going and peeling the onion. I mean, that's basically what it is. Like taking it layer by layer to figure out what you really already do know.
Absolutely. And I feel like we are more in touch with the root behind our feelings because we've been coached in that. Before I began coaching, I would say I was in touch, but not at the layer that I am now, not at the level that I am now. So if I start to feel anger or frustration or sadness, I can walk myself through steps to pinpoint exactly what am I feeling? Exactly why am I feeling this way? What is the root cause of it, so that I can address it at the root instead of chalking it up to something that's not actually the problem.
And when you really understand yourself, you're able to articulate to others what you need, what your expectations are, and connect with them better. So ultimately, the reason I wanted to bring up this topic is because language matters so much. And being direct with our language could truly mean connecting with people authentically.
Yes.
And not coming off as someone that's not enjoyable to be around. I mean, because I think that's what the perception is with women. Like women that are too direct would be uncomfortable to be around. I believe that someone that's able to speak directly is somebody that's authentically able to connect with me.
Yeah, and I like to talk about it being able to speak authentically, transparently. You can be direct and not be kind.
Yes, 100%.
So being direct with kindness and love is a powerful tool for everybody.
Mm-hmm.
If you're just direct to be like, this is who I am, live with it, that is not loving people well.
No.
At all. And so there is a difference. Conciseness happens whenever you're more direct with your words, and learning to ask questions instead of just giving commands, if you will, is a great way of communicating and getting together on the same page with where you are. And so then once you have some clarity around that person's thoughts, then you can be more direct with how you want to address the situation.
And being direct, but also taking other people's feelings and perspectives into account. So if you have a clear feeling of how you want something done, being open, you can still keep your expectations, but that doesn't mean that you are closed to listening to what others have ideas that are around you.
Right.
And so that's where conflict happens also, is when you believe it is how it is, I am who I am, mm-hmm. and not allowing others to pour into your life to help you form your decisions as you go.
Yeah, so let's use the example you gave of volunteering at school. Somebody says, hey, would you be willing to help out and run the games at the carnival? Would you man the jump station at this carnival? And you don't really want to do that. And you say, I really don't want to work that game. But if you need somebody, let me know. I mean, I guess I could do it. And if you have all intentions of not doing that, this person who is just trying to find volunteers for this school event is now like, Nicole, I think she's going to do it. I'll put her down. And then what's going to happen the night before, you're going to call and say, I'm not going to be able to work that carnival game. You knew that all along. Not that you would do this, but you knew that all along. But you wait until the last minute because why? You're afraid you're going to make that person mad. You're afraid that person's going to be mad at you for not working the jump castle at the carnival, at the school carnival, which really, that person wouldn't have cared one way or the other. They're just trying to fill a spot. But if you can say, if you're willing to volunteer somewhere else, say, I really don't want to work the jump station. What other opportunities are? Mm-hmm. What other opportunities do you have? I might be interested in one of those. Or if you don't want to do it, if you say, you know what, I really just want to take my kids to the carnival and just enjoy the time with them. But I appreciate you asking me, and if I think of anybody, I'll pass their name along. That no of I'm not going to do that is so much more beneficial to that person who's trying to get volunteers.
Yeah, and filling volunteer positions, isn't that the worst? I mean, that is like the worst job.
How many times have we both been in the position where we're trying to fill volunteer positions and people cancel at the last minute?
Yes.
And then you're like, I knew they were going to cancel on me.
Yes. I feel like we've even had that conversation before. Like, this doesn't surprise me. Well, then why? So why did they say yes? You know? Yes. So, and also that becomes super weighty on you as a person. Mm-hmm. Like, so for example, I'm going to use your same example. You're somebody, the thought of running a bounce house literally sounds like the worst job ever to you. And you said, I don't know if you can't find somebody else. And then they're just trying to fill positions and they come down to, they can't find anybody else. So you said you would. Mm-hmm. So now your name's there. And then you spend time thinking about how awful this is going to be.
Yes.
And up until the moment, and if a person ends up canceling, most likely they kind of went through an internal battle up until the point of deciding to cancel. So you now have caused turmoil in the fact that there's somebody that's not going to be at the bounce house. And you caused internal turmoil in yourself in that whole situation. When if you would have just spoke up at the beginning with I really don't want to work the bounce house, but I would be glad to hand out popsicles.
Yes.
You know, like situation where speaking and being clear with your words and not being wishy-washy takes away the anxiety of the person now that's going to have to refill that position because you backed out, or you along the way because you didn't want to do the bounce house in the first place. You set yourself up with failure with your words because you are not clear with them.
Mm-hmm. Or you do it, but you do it begrudgingly. So here is what I learned in that Bible study called Your Best Yes. It's just changing your mindset around it. So instead of thinking, oh, this person's going to be so mad at me if I don't do this, like you're being guilted into doing something, and then you're doing it begrudgingly, and you're pulling energy from yourself, from your family, right? Because you're irritated, you're having to do it. Realize you say no, and you saying no gives the person who's gifted in that area and who really wants to a beautiful opportunity to serve.
Mm-hmm.
And then, I mean, it's a blessing to give that to somebody. But if you are somebody that's dependent on to always fill the positions, and so they always come to you first, will you do this? Will you do that? Will you do this? And then your schedule is overloaded because you've said yes to everything because you have this like thing about saying no, you feel guilty. One, you've taken energy and kindness away from your family, but you've also taken blessings from people who would have loved to have done that and been really good at it, and it would have been a beautiful experience for them. So your no is somebody else's opportunity to say yes.
I 100% believe that too, because there are certain things I absolutely love to do and certain things that are not a gift, but it's crazy how someone else just thrives on the things that I don't thrive at. Mm-hmm. And if I just do it all, then that stinks because they don't get to do the things that are fun for them.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I'm saying that as somebody who is involved in the school and PTO and sometimes struggles to find volunteers. So if you're a school volunteer, find a way to volunteer. We always need more.
You know, I had this struggle way back when. So we're going to go back to when I had littles in the church nursery. Mm-hmm. And I had this guilt feeling like because I had one in the nursery, I should be in the nursery.
Yes.
I hated being in the nursery. I mean, I felt like I was because I was a seasoned mom, I was always the one that poopy diaper, Nicole, take care of it. I felt like I was changing one poopy diaper after another. But I felt as if I should do it. Like I created a story in my mind of why I should. Nobody else told me I should do it. I just felt like I should do it. And so I did something begrudgingly over and over again, which took away from the love of serving in the church because I wasn't doing something it wasn't my gift. I wasn't being called to it. I was certainly just begrudgingly doing it because I was supposed to.
Right.
And when I finally realized that there's other people that love to rock the other people's babies and love to sit on the floor and play with littles and don't mind changing the diapers the way I do, then I realized I was taking that position. And also I was robbing another position in the church. Like I could be doing something and thriving at it.
Right.
And instead I was doing something that was just putting me in a bad mood regularly.
Yeah.
And I was able to free myself of that. And it was so wonderful. But it was a huge lesson to me of how I created a story of something I thought I should do. And I did it begrudgingly. And when I got into my element, it was a game changer.
Yes. Yeah. That is a game changer. And it frees you from having to say yes. Another area where you're talking about how our words affect a situation and the power of our words is in emails. One, do not write an email as though you're having a conversation with somebody. It's irritating to have to read all of that. When you're concise, people appreciate it, and then they have more energy to respond and look up whatever information that you're needing because they haven't spent extra time reading a book of your dialogue with this person through email. Also, when you are sending an email and you need information from somebody and they haven't gotten it to you, a lot of times this is what comes. Hello, so-and-so. I'm just checking in to see if you might have the information we need on this such and such project. Eliminate all that I'm just checking in and say, good morning. Do you have the information we need on the such and such project? Again, if they're so busy that it takes them time, a long time to respond, adding extra stuff around it is annoying to read. And 2, it doesn't get your point across. All you're doing is asking a question. Just ask the question. The email comes through differently as well. It doesn't come through so passively, and it makes the person say, oh, I've got to get that over to them, right?
Yeah, and that also comes down to the same, it could be done in spoken language and in emails. So those long emails that are conversational, they don't get read.
No.
At all.
Oh.
Same with conversations that people are very wish-washy about. People don't take them seriously. They don't see any, if there is urgency, they're not pulling it from that conversation because it's so wish-washy.
Right.
You're not saying what you mean at that point. You're not saying what you need.
Yes.
Those emails, I can't tell you, I can even pull up some thoughts in my head of emails that I get from certain people that I don't even open because there's so much wishy-washy stuff there that it's not like I'm saying, I don't care what you have to say. It's more like I need to put this to the side till a time that I have more time to read it. And there's many times that it doesn't get read.
Another thing you want to watch out to is your words can set a tone as well. So if you are someone who tends to say, well, you said such and such, you said you would do this, you said you would do this. If you're a real you said person, and you'll probably start to hear this more now that I'm bringing it up, you'll hear this in conversation, you'll read it in emails, where some people have this need to always remind you of what you've said. Eliminate that from your conversation. Eliminate that from your vocabulary. If you need to recall something that was said, you can do that. But if you're continually, well, you said, it feels aggressive and it makes that person very defensive.
And what are you trying to prove with that?
Right.
It's actually probably goes against the message of what you need accomplished. Because when you use the you said, really that point is there's blame being pointed out in there. Versus let's say you, from a business partner, you need an answer to a question, and then you do the you said. The subject that partner is going to come away with is you're blaming me. And not actually getting the content that needs to be passed back and forth.
Yeah.
So when we are talking or when we are writing, words matter, especially when you want to have effective conversation.
Yes.
What do you want to be remembered in that email? You suck? I mean, and maybe that's what the point of the email was. Because that's really, when you use those words over and over again, there's something about a blame that's put into it, but that's what the person's going to walk away with.
Yeah.
Instead of wanting to walk away being like, I did not get this content to this person. I need to get it to them ASAP. It's going to be more of, well, this person obviously has an opinion about me and I'm going to show him, or I'll make him wait longer, or, who knows what could come out of that. But a defense shield's going to come up when that kind of language is used. So 2 examples, one professional, one personal, that this happens often, or it happened, 2 examples where this happened. So one, we were working on a brand design with a client, and the client said, we were talking about colors, and we said, would you want to introduce a bolder color on this into your branding palette? No, we really prefer the blues and the grays because it's a softer look. We want it to be a softer experience, welcoming, very calming. Okay. Well, as we went through it, there were a couple of brand items where they were thinking they wanted a bolder color. And so they were going to add an orange in there.
which worked with this blue and this gray. It sounds kind of weird. We said, okay. Well, then this orange started coming into a lot more places. And we were in the meeting and somebody said, well, you said you wanted to give your clients this other experience using blues and grays. Okay, that immediately, I can still see him today. Like, he bristled up and he felt defensive. Like, well, you said this. But if we had just asked the question, do you think if we continue to introduce this orange in these other places, then it's going to take away from that calming feel we want to bring into the branch? Totally different question. Nobody's on guard, and it opens up the conversation. Personally, a personal example of this, going out to dinner. I can be very indecisive on where I want to eat sometimes. I think a lot of people can. Sometimes I just don't care. But one time, making the suggestion, do you want to go to Mexican? Sure, we'll go to Mexican. Yeah. Okay, that'll be good. Where do you want to go? Mexican. So we're going to the Mexican restaurant. Would you want to go to Bonefish instead? And well, you said you wanted Mexican. I didn't really say I wanted it. I just said, let's do that. But then I threw out this other suggestion. So why remind me of what I said? Like I forgot I said Mexican food. You know, it's like, what was the purpose of that? You were just irritated because I was throwing out other suggestions. And so this you said, I think people are going to start to hear it a lot more.
I'm already really interested in where I'm going to pick it up. And then just as much if you ask your spouse, would you like to do this or that? And they say this, but you really wanted that. Then you're salty because they didn't pick that because that's really what you wanted.
Oh, yes. Yes.
Like that's just, it's ridiculous. Or if your spouse asks you what you want and you're wishy-washy about it, but you do have an opinion. Again, you're not using your words. So therefore you're making someone else guess what you're thinking. Right. It's such an unfair thing to do.
Right. Yeah, our words are powerful. Our words are our ticket. It's like our words are the avenue for all of our relationships to thrive or to die. You know, that is the transportation of everything. Our emotions, our thoughts, our feelings. And if we aren't specific in our words, and if we're wishy-washy in the way that we communicate, and if we're passive when we need to be direct, then it just sets everybody else up around us uncomfortably.
It does.
Yeah.
So great topic.
It is a great topic. It's one I'm going to think about a lot more. And I'm probably going to feel like, oh, I wish we had talked about this. I wish we had talked about that because it's such a powerful topic. We'll probably come back to it.
And I think now that the topic's in our heads and in our listeners' head, it's even going to be something we continue to think about when we say something. Do we really mean it? Or are we really stating clearly what we want to say? So I think early on I said, are we stating clearly what we want? But what really I think what I was saying was, are we saying clearly what we mean to say instead of being wishy-washy about it? So hopefully for us and for our listeners, we'll start thinking about that when we talk to our kids, when we talk to our spouses, when we talk to our coworkers, our employees, our bosses. And when we are asked a question, we say what we're meaning to say. And when we ask questions of somebody, we're not setting ourselves up for failure. We're expecting the same from other people. And then when we change our language, then we can thrive.
Yes.
So
very good.
If you would like to learn more about our coaching business or what we're up to, go to www.liveyourdesign.life.